Hi, folks. Welcome to session one of our VAN 201 training courses. These courses are going to be a little bit different than VAN 101, and these are going to be very focused on strategic planning, uh, utilizing various resources that KDP has created or it can make available to folks to run your to not only run your campaigns, but sort of get your campaigns started. So here in session one, we're going to talk about our campaign planning toolset. So things like district profiles to get an idea of what the district looks like, who's going to turn out, who's turned out in the past, things of that nature. That way you have an idea of what things will look like in the midterm and where to start building programs. So with that, let's just go ahead and get started. So I think the big thing for folks to know as we start this session is, uh, as candidates start thinking about running for office in 2022, up and down the ballot. A lot of 2021 has been spent developing resources that'll be available to candidates, prospective candidates, and their teams to formulate, execute, and track their plans. Um, this tool set includes district profiles, field math and weekly goal workbooks, turf trackers and precinct density, progress to goal forms, automated analytics reports. So VAN 201 is dedicated to learning how to utilize these and implement these tools. In this very first session, we're not going to talk about all of these. We're going to pretty much talk about district profiles, but these sort of have a workflow of you start with district profiles. From there, you know what your win number is, what the turnout's going to be. Then you can build your universe, figure out how many folks you need to talk to in the field math and weekly goals workbook, uh, build out your turf tracker, do your have that interact with our precinct density. Um, from there, once you've got those, you'll be able to go from your goals to your progress to goal form. That way, you know what you need to hit each week. Enter that into a Google form that we have created for everyone. From that, that is going to sync into our backend, interact with your voter contact data, and provide an automated voter contact analytics report each morning that shows you what you've done each and every week and lets you know how many doors you knocked, calls you made, texts you sent, how many IDs you've got, what your response rate is, what your weekly ID breakdown is, see how you're building capacity, things like that. So this entire 201 is going to be dedicated to talking more about those. But for this week, we're just going to talk about district profiles, what those are, how they're built, what the important things you need to know from them are, and go into next steps from there. So, with district profiles, there are two separate profiles for our candidates that really focus on that are really dependent upon what audience you are. So for the KYDP campaigns, district profiles 2022, the top one, this is definitely focused more on candidates towards the middle of the ticket, congressional and state legislative level. It can also be used for county-wide candidates as well. Meanwhile, for more candidates at the local level, our KYDP campaigns local district profile really focused on folks that might be running for some county offices, maybe not county-wide per se, but county-wide is included in this one when it comes to previous turnout. Local level, city council, city commish, things like that to let you know what your district looks like, how many voters there are, how many folks are likely to turn out, the demographics, things like that. In addition, we have likely turnout, historical results, and on the one for the District Profile 2022 for state legislative folks, we have fundraising history. That way you can see how much folks have raised in that district and to hopefully give you an idea of what you might need to raise. And then this isn't going to be a full walkthrough of those of these profiles. Those are available at the link here on the bottom that folks will be able to go to. That'll be included in the slide deck. That way you can sort of go through each one of those one by one. Here in the next couple of slides, we're just going to talk about the high level information that you can glean from it. So before we do go into looking at these profiles, just want to give folks an overview of what these various pages are and what's included in them at a little bit of a higher level to understand what we're pulling from it and hopefully building campaign plans from. So in the district profile 2022, we have a district projections, which is going to give you an estimated turnout for the 2022 elections. There's a page for the primary and the general. And based upon those, what the win number is at 52% of the vote. Along with this, you're going to get demographic breakdowns of the voters in both of these projections. The estimated turnout is built by utilizing our in-house turnout models for 2022, which are very state-specific and have validated very well in 2018 data. And if you start doing counts and crosstabs, you will notice folks that are in the higher score ranges are your big 3-3 voters. Folks that are in your lower score ranges are your folks that have 0 3. So that's sort of how those are built. The district base provides legislative candidates with an idea of the Democratic and Republican base, what the max votes have been for each party in state legislative races, and what the average performance is of candidates in the last couple elections. So this is going to help folks know what their base number is, how many folks are always going to vote Democrat, how many folks are always going to vote Republican, and hopefully help you build out your vote deficit to let you know if turnout is X and my Democratic base is Y. Then from that we can solve for Z to get our base or get our deficit. Voter reg just lets you see the voter registration trends in the district going back to 2018. So you'll be able to say, is the district gaining more Democrats? Is the district gaining more Republicans? Is it staying pretty safe? Is it neck to neck? Things like that. Just to give you an idea of what the voter registration looks like as reported by the State Board of Elections going back to January 2018. Last but not least, district fundraising is going to give everyone an idea of how much past candidates have raised for that seat, as well as giving you a better understanding of how much you might need to raise. We have how much the candidates have raised, how many donations they've had, what the cost per vote has been. So things like that, just to give folks an idea of what the race will actually cost to win. Next, on the local district profile, we have some very similar stuff. Total registration is on not only the district profile, but not only the local profile, but the 2022 profile. So both of them have total registration. And just like what we just talked with the previous profile, we have likely 22 voters, which is going to give you, again, likely number of voters in your district, their demographics, your win number. In addition, we also have a 2018 voters page, which lets you see who were the folks that voted in this race in 2018. That way you can compare, like, here's who I expect to vote in 2022. Here's who voted in 2018. Do they look similar? And can you sort of get an idea of maybe I can help increase turnout in some of these younger folks or various demographics? Would I be able to run programs to increase their likelihood of voting to get me more votes? Historical turnout is going to let you know the total number of ballots cast in previous elections, in previous municipal elections. So if you have one that's head-to-head, so like a mayor, it'll be very close to the actual number. However, if it's a city council seat that is at large, or vote for the top six, top 8, top 5 folks, that's just going to sum all of those up to let you know how many ballots were cast overall. Finally, with countywide, this is going to give you the total number of ballots cast in county offices, plus the total number that the person that won the race received, and how much the loser received in each race. That way you can get an idea of that. I'm pretty sure if folks know what office they're running for, you're probably going to have an idea of who won the last one, who lost the last one. This is going to give you an idea of what their total votes were. So with that, we're going to move into some example campaign planning. We're going to use House District 45 here in Lexington, one I'm very familiar with that I helped last year in the general election. So we'll be able to sort of get an idea of what the numbers are and how to sort of start thinking about a plan for this district. So before we actually do move in, let's just go over some key planning terms. That way everyone's on the same page. So estimated turnout, what the total number of voters expected to vote is in the district, and that's based upon predicted modeling, like I said. Your win number then is based upon your estimated turnout, and this is the total number of voters you need to win. So your win number is truly 50% of the vote plus one vote, but to be safe, we're setting everything at 52% of the vote, and that'll help if it's a close race and there's any legal challenges or recanvass, things like that. Base number, so what's the minimum amount of votes that a party's candidate is going to get in each election? Going back a few campaign cycles, this will just give you an idea of how many voters will always vote for a Democrat or Republican. Then your vote deficit is based upon your win number and base number. This is the total number of votes that are needed to get to your win number. So those are some of the key planning terms that are going to be important as we move on. That are going to sort of be some of our key takeaways in this example, as well as what folks should be looking for when they're building out their plan based on these profiles. So on the 2022 profile, it's pretty easy. We've made it very, very simple for folks to know what all is on the page. So up here, we're just seeing total voters, and then based upon their turnout score, we'll see that 22,161 folks are likely to vote. That's 53.27% of the electorate is likely to turn out, which sets our win number at 11,524. Down here in the graphs, we get an idea of the various demographics of these likely voters. These numbers are not necessarily going to 100% reflect what's in here. So this is based on a calculation. These are based upon a filter. I tried to make sure that the score that we were filtering on was close to the general turnout, but it's not going to be 100% exact. But it's still going to be close enough to give you an idea of what those demographics are. So here we have what your likely voter gender and party breakdown is. So how many Democratic women, Democratic men, Republican women, Republican men, etc., on this one are going to turn out. What's your likely gender and age breakdown? So this gives you an idea of what the age range are, and is it going to be men or women that vote more? Down here, these are 100% stacked, so it's going to give you an idea of your white voters, how many are going to be Democrats, how many are going to be Republicans, same on for other ethnicities, and then similar for age ranges of your folks in the 18 to 29 range, how many are going to be Democrats, how many are going to be Republicans, etc., etc. But the key takeaways are we're going to have 22,161 folks vote, and that puts our win number at 11,524. Next, we're going to be talking about the likely voter base. So this is pretty straightforward. These top lines here are the main things to be looking at. So base D, base GOP votes, that's the likely number of folks that are always going to vote for either Democrat or Republican. The max votes is what the max number of votes the candidate has got. And then just taking all of these recent results, what's the average performance? So the base number are the big things to remember on this page. Not as important here, but still useful for folks to know is going to be how's the voter registration changed. So you'll see back in 2018, Republicans had a slight lead. Now Democrats have a slight lead as recently as June 2021. And then down here on the bottom, we're going to just see what the fundraising totals have been. So 2014, if we just want to go back, there was no Democratic candidate. So that explains why there's nothing here. And then in 2016, the Democrat raised 46K, 2018, 52K, 2020, 91K. And you'll see similar, and you'll see that as a trend line down here. You'll see what the Republicans raised. So they went from 41 up to 52, up to 69.25, down to 23K, or we'll call it 22.5K. And then we get an idea of what the total cost per vote is here in the bar and what the total cost per vote is for each party. Just useful information for folks to know what an election in their seat is costing. So now we can sort of just start putting things together. So like we said, for turnout, 22,161, win number is at 11,524. And now, just because we know that this seat is really competitive, or has been really competitive, just putting in what those numbers were for the 2016, 18, and 20 House race, filling that in with the 2018 congressional race in the district and the governor's race, which really feels a lot better because while we said the base over here is 8,553, that was Matt Bevin's worst performance. It doesn't feel with this, we know that this is a Republican-held seat and has been. So thinking that the Democrats going to enter with a slight lead is probably incorrect in thinking. So here we're putting in the Amy McGrath, Andy Barr numbers, which when you think about it, makes it look a lot closer to what it probably will be. So based upon that, we're going to keep the estimated base at the 2016 Democrat number, which is 9,991. The Republican base number is at 10,872, which puts the Democratic estimated base at 45.5%, which means with this 11,524, the Republican needs to get 652 votes to get to that number, and the Democrat needs to get 1,553 to get to the win number. So these numbers aren't going to be 100% exact always, but it should give folks an idea of where things are, and they can make adjustments as needed. So the next one we're going to go to is going to be... starting early this morning without my coffee. So the next campaign planning example is going to be the Elizabethtown City Council to use our local profile. So we're just going to move into this one. So this page here is going to be our total registration. So you will see there are 25.4, close to 25.4 thousand people registered in the precincts that vote in the Elizabethtown City Council race. The various demographics like we saw here in a pivot chart and bar charts. Then along with that, the next page is going to be our likely 22 voters. So we saw the close to 22.4 thousand voter, 25.4 thousand voters, and now we're basically putting on calculating what the likely turnout is. So the projected turnout is 10,115 voters. That puts a 52% win number at 5,260. Your average turnout score is 39.89. Then you get the demographics of who those likely voters are. So we'll see there's just a little bit more Democrats than Republicans that are going to vote, a lot more women than men that are likely to vote. And this gives folks an idea of what the electorate will look like. Then, by comparison, we can just go over to the 2018 results. We'll see that while turnout has went up, the total number of votes that we had based upon voter credit, so this actual State Board of Election file, was 9,890. Turnout was close to 42%. So thinking about this, 40% turnout, 42%, pretty close. And then this gives you an idea and this gives you an exact representation of who those voters were. So a lot more Democrats and more women than men. And this will just let folks know who those likely voters were. Are things looking like they're going to stay the same? So it looks fairly similar to the map, with just one of the adjustments being the 2018 turnout had about an equal number of folks in the 50 to 59, 60 to 69 range. And this one has a uptick in the 60 to 69 range as likely turnout. So hopefully that gives folks an idea of what to expect. Then just moving to total turnout, this one does have an asterisk. These come from the State Board of Elections files, so they're not going to be 100% correct, especially since there was a lot of transformations that needed to make them usable for this. But you will see that you'll sort of see what the total number of votes has been for candidates in council races, mayoral races. So 34.8 in the city council races combined, 7.6K in the mayoral race. And then I just brought in this one to give folks an idea. So 39.6 thousand in the council race. We had 34.8 on this. So there's about a 5,000 vote difference between what we downloaded in the CSV and what the Harding County Clerk printed out. So not 100% not 100% exactly correct, but it gives you an idea of what that turnout has been as well. And the one thing I definitely want to note here is we're talking about getting 52% of the vote. That's not going to happen for a city council race like this. For instance, you'll see that folks can vote for 6 candidates, so each vote gets counted down here. So 39,000 people didn't vote. It was this 9,000, close to 10,000 votes, so their votes got counted multiple times in this total, and you'll see that the top vote getter was at 11.4%. So things to keep in mind with these races, but it gives you an idea of what things look like. So just bring in these key planning numbers. Expected turnout, again, 10,115. Put your 52% win number at 5,260. However, like we said for nonpartisan races, the total number of votes may not necessarily need to be 50 plus 1% of the threshold. These go to the top vote getters. And again, in Elizabethtown, it was the top 6. So, but this should give you an idea of how many votes you need to win and feel like you're in a good position. When building out base numbers for nonpartisan races, it's best to look at vote totals from candidates with similar ideologies to calculate that base. You're not as easily able to do that in nonpartisan races based upon results and build them into this profile. But if you look back, say, I know this candidate, we're sort of aligned, they got this many votes, that's sort of what my base number should be. That's a way to do that. And again, once you know this base number, you can calculate the remaining number of votes you need to get to your win number. So just going forward to some next steps, what folks need to do next and what they can do next once they've figured all of this out. So really, it's just complete the plan. Once you have your key numbers, these are the key parts. These are the key parts of the next step that you need to do, which is build your field and voter contact plan. So big things that you're going to want to think about are what modes are you going to use to reach voters? Are you going to do canvassing, calls, text, digital, mail, radio, TV, relational, things like that? Who are these voters? So create your universe. What is going to be the best method to reach them? When do you need to contact them? Are they going to be persuasion, mobilization, GOTV? And what tools exist to make this possible? How do you prioritize targets? And a lot of these questions that we just asked are going to be covered in the next couple of trainings that we do. But having these, having your win number, having the expected turnout, having your base, Uh, and all of those going forward are going to be very beneficial in plugging and helping determine who your voters are, building your various universes, and building out the rest of your plan. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and look forward to seeing folks in the next section where we're going to talk about uh, building out some of your goals, setting goals, and tracking goals. So with that, I will go ahead and let everyone have a good rest of your day. Thanks.